6 o'clock. We'll call it. Start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody, for coming.
First thing on the agenda is minutes from the 16th and 22nd of August.
I just reviewed them, guys. Everything, asked you a couple questions on it. They look good to me.
We got a motion. The second is not public.
I put a motion to accept the minutes.
All in favor?
Aye. Yeah.
All right. All right, so we're going to go a little bit out of order here, and we want to talk about the recreation chairman and recreation grants.
Hello.
Hi, I'm Rochelle Capo. I've been running the farmers market for the last 4 years, and I'd like to step up and help take care of recreation stuff in Canaan and get things going. What kind of information do you need from me?
So, go ahead.
What are your qualifications
Qualifications?
besides just volunteering?
Well, I kind of rebuilt the Canaan market from scratch. I have a lot of experience with applying for grants, which I feel like would be beneficial to this if we can bring in money that the town doesn't have to contribute to any programs. I have 4 kids. We're always down at the playground. We're always trying to get stuff going. They're the kind of kids who will see who else is there, like, hey, let's go play this. You know, we'll bring equipment down and they want to play games. I've been homeschooling them for 10 years. I have teaching experience. My husband's a certified teacher. I don't know how much that counts for recreation stuff, but we have a lot of experience with kids. I've worked in schools in the past.
Great.
I used to play all kinds of sports before I became a mom. Can't do that stuff so much anymore.
Sure.
Good. Are you going to continue to still do the farmer's market or? Okay.
Sounds like the experience we're looking for. I mean, yeah, right?
I've already been looking into different grant opportunities. Looks like there's some good stuff out there that we can use to revamp the facilities that we have and hopefully get some money injected in equipment and programs. Kind of want to start small. Like, afternoon once a week where kids can come down and check out equipment and see what everybody's interested in.
Mhm.
There's so much going on at schools and after school stuff already. So I want to start small and see what everybody would like to do before we dive in and get, big.
Yeah, makes sense, right? See what the interests are and go from there. Yeah.
So are you, have experience with fundraising and all that?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Now we got the market back up and going.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So I appreciate you stepping up and volunteering.
So now are you planning on starting like right away, or are you gonna wait till next spring, or what's the game plan?
There are a couple of grant applications that have a deadline of October 1st.
Okay.
I'd like to start applying for those, just so that we have money to work with in the springtime.
Okay,
I'd like some community input on something, if you guys are cool with it, to put a poll in the town email
Uh-huh.
to see what people are interested in, like where we can put that funding. If I can.
okay.
Monica, you had
I
something?
would like to say how much I appreciate you starting this back up. I do know the after school program at the school is completely broke. There is no more room for any more children. There's still a big need for children. to do something after school, so that is awesome to hear.
Hmm.
Thank you.
There's funding available currently in the recreation account that she can work with.
Okay,
I don't remember the exact amount, but it was something like 15,000.
And there's also, I think, $17,000 in the trustee of trust fund, Williams Field account. I don't know whether any of that is earmarked for project. It's not. So there's another bunch
Actually,
of money.
part of it may be, in reviewing the files this afternoon, as a matter of fact, I discovered we're supposed to pay the basketball.
Oh, nice.
Oh, that's great, because that's one of the things that I wanted to do.
That would be nice, wouldn't it? Yeah.
But she has done a wonderful job resurrecting the farmer's market. Anyone who goes down there Sunday morning to see.
Absolutely.
So if that energy can be put towards rest, we're good.
I'm in.
all right.
Yep.
What's your name again? I'm sorry. Thank you.
Michelle.
Technically, would somebody be willing to appoint her as recreation chairman?
I make a motion that we appoint her as the recreation chairman.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Congratulations.
And it
Congratulations.
comes with a big thank you from our community. We
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely. And please keep us up to date when things start happening and different, grants you might apply for, the money that comes in. If it's just a day-to-day routine, do your thing. But I'd like to know, just so I can know that it's coming back and it is working, So, yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. How do I spell your first name?
RACHELLE.
Okay. Thank you, Rochelle.
Also working with Holly, they're working on getting donations from Home Depot for supplies and people to help redo the dugouts.
Nice.
So that'll be free to the town.
Awesome.
Home Depot's gonna donate that.
Great.
Thank you. Yeah, very cool. Awesome. Started the meeting out with some good news.
All right. Well, thank you. Okay, now, stepping from that,
I need India's last name. India online, you need to use the chat to give me your name or else I'll have to take you out of the meeting.
so the next thing on the agenda is the Graceville complaint. Do we have anybody here from Graceville?
We do not. Boy,
Anybody on Zoom?
anybody on Zoom from Graceville?
Sid Coates is on there. COATES.
So I know this isn't gonna make much difference because everyone is here, it doesn't have anything to do with Graceville, but it's awful hard for the select board to address your complaints and really puts the effort into them that they need if you don't show up at the meeting to talk to us about what they are. So I got a little bit of an idea.
Yeah.
Uh,
Is Sam, is that, Sam, so, Sam, you're aware of it, you have anything to say about it?
I'm not familiar with any complaints, so I'm not sure what we're addressing. Is that the residents out there?
Yes.
I'm familiar with the residents, but I'm not sure what the complaint is.
Okay. You want to file one? Yeah. I mean, I don't see any point unless they come in and file a complaint.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on.
Yeah,
All right. Water project and proposed change order. Your show.
Mike Duffy with Horizons Engineering. You guys have hired Horizons as to do construction management on the project. Project has gotten started. The clearing's been done probably 3 weeks ago now or so. We did a test pit in the location where we were going to do the drilling from. And the plans identified that we were going to dig down to an existing 12-inch pipe, which is your existing intake. We were going to cut the pipe and we were going to essentially remount the pipe and install another 4-inch pipe inside that 12-inch. When they did the test pit, they got down 14, 15 feet, still had not reached the pipe. There's quite a bit of water coming in. There's high groundwater out there with those wetlands right out there near the near the area as well. John, I believe, witnessed, I didn't witness the test pit, but they dug down, they found some wooden shoring that they used years ago to stabilize an excavation. Shoring was still in good place, so they felt pretty sure they were in between it. So they felt pretty sure that that's where the pipe was to look for it. They had a probe, just a steel probe to go down in. They poked down in there, still didn't find the pipe. And essentially we had to regroup to see what the next course of action would be, because it didn't look feasible, at least right then and there. So what's happened, so again, when we bid the job, initially, the concept was going to be to drill out into the lake. And our original budget that we put together for the town was to drill out into the lake. And we kind of came up, I came up with the idea of perhaps using that pipe for a couple of reasons. One was that it would provide protection as well from the ice into the lake. It wouldn't get us out nearly as far as we wanted, but it'd get us out 250 feet about from the shore. And from there, we were just going to set the pipe right on the bottom of the lake, the new pipe. And we're going to go out a total of 1,350 feet from the shore. So we were going to go out another 1,100 feet from the existing intake. And the purpose of that was to get into water that was more than 3 or 4 feet deep. We're going to try to get out into 15 feet of water. The thought is that that water quality is going to be a lot better than what you have right now in closer to shore, especially with all of the debris that blows in on that end of the lake. So we met out there with the contractor and with his drilling subcontractor. And they essentially, in this one document here that says change order 1, you'll see the second page in August 18th. It was their proposal. Since we weren't going to go inside the existing pipe, there was an $8,000 credit for that work that wasn't going to be done potentially. And then they gave us a price to drill, essentially drill all the way out to the location where we want to put the intake. So there's 1,350 feet or so out into the lake. Oh, there's more than that. Let's say 1,400 feet out into the lake, and then 300 feet they would be drilling under the wetlands that is between the lake and an upland area out of jurisdictional wetlands. They gave us a price of $55 a foot to do that drilling, which in my experience is a fair, very fair number. We often use $100 a foot for water main pipe when we're doing estimates. So that was $93,500. So that the net difference there was $85,375. We met last Thursday and had a pretty good discussion on the conditions that were out there. And there was a suggestion made that we would ask the contractor, what would it cost to use the existing pipe, just like the original design intent that's in place right now. So the contractor did send me today, and you have that in front of you, a second proposal to do that, to utilize the same pipe as a sleeve. And the issue that they see with that, and the big concern that they have, is we have a 12-inch pipe. It's connected directly to the lake. The intent was to put a plug on the end of that pipe. When we were going to drill through it, we plug it so there wasn't any water that could come back through. The town was going to set up a temporary feed to the treatment plant so that when we cut that pipe, or when we plugged it, cut it, that we would be able to feed the plant separately with a completely different operation. We actually were all set up to do that. We had the pipe, we have a pump, and that was going to be the next step as soon as we had our ducks in a row with that existing pipe. So the contractor is very concerned that being another 8 feet or so below the lake level, literally below the lake level, that they were going to have some real potential to have a difficult time dealing with the water that could come through that 12-inch pipe, essentially. So there's groundwater in that area, and then there's also this pipe that once we cut that, once we go through the end of that, all of that water is going to want to fill up their hole, essentially. So the soils out there, as I understand, they were saturated soils, kind of sloughing into the excavation, so that they essentially felt that they were going to need to do a significant effort to put in protection, some sort of sheeting, and to also have a system in there to de-water, actually put in some wells right around that area and pump any water that's coming into there. The machine that they use to do this drilling work, it's essentially, it's a large drill rig that drills horizontally instead of having a boom that goes up in the air and drills down into the ground to drill a well. Similar to that, it's set up with all of the drilling apparatus. They drill essentially 20 feet at a time, then they put another length of rod on and drill another 20 feet. And so we got a price from them to use the existing price of $96,500. So the gist of this, it's actually going to cost about the same amount of money with no credit to try to utilize that existing pipe. So I guess one of the things, there was a potential to save some money doing kind of trying to utilize what we had out there, and we took that route, which was a little different than what we estimated initially to do there to get that intake out there. And the bottom line is that the existing conditions were not what we thought they were going to be. So contractually, we have this book. There's a big book that goes along with this project. And what we're kind of operating under was something called differing conditions. So it's when something goes on with the project that is not what was expected, and it's different than what was the contractor bid on, essentially. I think that there's some real advantages to drilling it all the way out. If we drill it all the way out, hydraulically, we don't have any high points in the pipe that we would have to potentially deal with. If air gets into the pipe, you'd have to expel that air somehow, so it's kind of a maintenance issue. If you look at the change order one, has an alignment shown on there of what the pipe would look like if we drill it. So essentially, the contractor would like to drill relatively deep under the wetlands and under the lake. And the intent would be to pop up out of the lake bed probably 50 to 100 feet short of where we want the intake. So you wouldn't have to worry about any ice issues with it. You wouldn't have to worry about any potential for the pipe to float. This is a HDPE pipe, so it is actually buoyant. And then what we'd also do, we talked to John about it, is we would keep the existing intake in place to act as a backup for the system in case something happened to the other intake. So my recommendation is to go with the directional drill. Horizons has put together that change order form.
And that's the 96, that's the 96.5.
It would be the 85,375 overall with the credit for not using the existing pipe.
So once you got under the lake, how far out would you be still drilling underground? I mean, why do you have to keep it underground once it's in the lake?
You want to keep a certain amount of ballast or weight on top of the drilling because the drill would tend to want to come up. A lot of times when we're drilling under rivers and stuff, and the contractor just feels that we can avoid the other pipe as well. If we try to get down, we don't have to worry about bumping into the existing pipe. And he just feels that it's a better, I often rely on people that do this for a living every single day. This subcontractor is out of Burlington, Vermont. ECI is the name of the company, and they're a very reputable firm. So their suggestion is to drill it deep
So you're gonna run the same line alongside or above or below the current line?
We would be below the existing line. It's going uphill into the lake. So the existing
Well, they
line,
don't really
the
know where the
intake is,
existing line is, do they?
yeah, the existing line starts out, it's maybe 4 feet deep in the lake right now with the intake. And that used to be a gravity feed into town. That's where the water supply came from through that old pipe. So it's relatively flat, but it's all downhill from that point of the intake. And that's how it was gravity flow down to town. So the plant itself actually has a pump. When that pipe in the lake level, the plant is about 4 feet higher than the lake level. So it's not a gravity flow into your filter plant. There's actually a pump in there that will, it's a suction lift pump that'll draw the water up and it puts it into your filters. And that'll be the same situation that we have here. We'll still need to do that because the lake is essentially lower than the point we're trying to draw the water out of. So you're gonna have to pump anyways there for that. But again, one thing I like about this, and if you looked at that side view, that profile, is that the pipe will go down and then the pipe will come back up. So any air that potentially could get into that line,
This is all we got.
that's all you got.
So I don't know I'm not seeing what you're talking about.
So if the pipe is getting closer to the surface, closer to the lake it is, how much closer can you get to the lake and dig down to get to the existing pipe? Instead of,
I'm sorry.
see, well, right now you dug your test hole because we're gonna run a line through the existing line.
That's what we
You
want.
went down 15 feet and you couldn't reach it. How much closer can you get to the lake and dig a test hole and reach that pipe and do what you originally planned? Is it feasible?
We are pretty much at the edge of the wetlands where we are. And we don't have a wetlands permit for that. We did get a wetlands permit for other ancillary work. But I think that, again, now John, did you hand that out? Yep. So the red line there shows essentially where we want to go. And the test pit that was done was pretty much right at the edge of the wetland. So it's where we had showed them to put that, to do the drilling work to begin with. So we could potentially say, well, we only want you to drill out and get into the lake. So it would be a lot less than the 1,700 feet. But then we would actually have, we would drill out, we have a high point, we'd be going back down, because the point is we want to have the intake, down at 10 or 12 feet below the surface, not up higher. The lake bed there, it's very shallow. It stays 4 to 5 feet out for 1,200 feet or so of the lake. So it's a long way that we would run kind of with a high point in the pipe there before we went back down. I know it doesn't help some because we have a price of 230,000 or so, and this is adding in another 95,000 or so, or 85,000. And we were hoping to use some of that other money. So we were under our estimate, which I don't know if it was perceived as a good thing, maybe a bad estimate, or the prices were too low or something. When I was here the last time, we were talking about why is it so far under the budget? And so there are funds with the SRF program. We had estimated 550 with the job total.
Those funds can be used for other things.
Absolutely.
And, Mike, I was out there, I stood there with you guys for 2 hours the other day, right? Hashing this all out. And, I believe John is his name, right? And that's the owner of Horizons. Was that the gentleman that was there?
John was okay. Yep.
Yep.
John was there.
So we had a pretty good dialogue the other day. There were a lot of things thrown back and forth. To be able to do that tonight on a whim is going to be difficult because it took us a while to get rolling and talking about the project and where we're at. But at the end of the day, my understanding is that I thought John and I had come to an agreement that we needed to dig a deeper hole and find the pipe and regroup. And that the change order, because we had talked about in the contract originally, the pipe was estimated to be 8 or 9 feet in the ground. and you guys dug around 14 and didn't find it. So my thoughts were, and speaking with John, and correct me if you heard something else, because that's what we got to do tonight. Got to get this nailed down. But I thought the end result was where I came back and said, well, then we need a bigger piece of equipment so we can dig deeper. And in my mind, the change order comes from when you guys get past the 8 or 9 feet where you don't find the pipe. So let's use 10 feet. Say you were supposed to find the pipe by 10 feet, but we actually got to dig 20. The change order comes at that next 10 feet until we find the pipe. And then we figure out if we can go from work from there. So I thought, and more water coming in, shoring the walls up differently, using some different pump equipment. That was all part of our conversation. Because the deeper you go, the more involved it gets. But I thought the change order that we were getting tonight was going to be for that process. How much more to pump the water out, how much more to shore the dirt up, and how much more to dig the additional foot to find the pipe. So what did I miss the other day?
Well, that's the price that I got today from them. So after our meeting, I called them, I said, here's what's occurred. What would it take to use the original concept that we bid out to get down deep, to do whatever we needed to do? And that's that other document from them,
The 96.5.
the 96.5, yes.
So
And
it's
so if you read through that, I mean, there's a
$93,000
pretty
change
good,
order so it's a $93,000 change order to dig from the water treatment plant all the way out underneath the lake, like you just said, and put in a completely new line. Or it's $96,000 to dig a deeper test pit and find the pipe.
well, it wouldn't just be the test pit. It would be to actually
But
do
the
that
drilling was already
methodology.
included. So if I bid your house to paint it, I can't come back and give you a change order to purchase the paint or to touch my paintbrush. So the drilling was already included, and straighten me out if need be. I'm okay with that. So we can all get on the same page. But in the original proposal that we signed, drilling was included in that dollar, right?
That's correct.
So why is there an upcharge for the same drilling here?
Well, the drilling is, if you look at the change order one, there's credit for the drilling piece of 9,000. I'm sorry, it's 8,125. And so now that credit is just from the driller. It doesn't include the contractor, Kingsbury, had to prepare the hole and do everything.
Yeah.
The driller would have come in with a pretty small machine.
Yeah.
And he would have just reamed out an existing pipe. So it was going to be a very simple, easy, not very risky thing to do because the pipe is there. We know that.
Right.
And if it's full of anything, it'll be kind of, mush maybe, or it could be tuberculated. It could be some more solid stuff, but it would be a very easy operation for them to drill out, clean the pipe out, and then pull back through. So just the drilling itself, they're saying a credit for not drilling through the pipe of the 8250 or whatever it is.
Yeah,
The 8125.
Yeah.
And then the add-in for this completely different drilling that they're proposing to do is the 93.5. So they're subtracting a smaller amount out for that easier operation that they're not going to have to do.
so somewhere I feel like we're not on the same page, Mike, and it very well may be. Stephen, did you have
I
something?
understand, I understand what Dan is saying is, if you had to go down another 8 feet to get to the existing pipe, that's the difference in the change. So what's the cost of building that cribbing to go down to the 8 feet to get into the pipe and do that easy drilling at $8,000 instead of $93,000?
And that's that second number of 96,500.
To go down to the pipe that you thought was at 8 feet.
Yeah, and there was a cover page with this too that that he really kind of went through and gave a pretty good description of what the breakout is for that number. And I don't know that you got a copy of that, but it was kind of helpful for me to read through, and I'm like, okay. The biggest item in there, 32,000, it said to install a dewatering system. They'd auger down to a depth of 20 feet. They put in 4 wells. They'd have pumps there that could pump 24/7. And then, of course, that water has to go somewhere. So you have to control there. You can't just erode, you can't just dump water out and without kind of, yeah. Now, another thing to consider with this is we essentially have a 30-foot easement to work within there. So, you know, this might be a 30-foot wide hole by the time they get done with it to get down that deep. And by the time they put those wells in too. So, you know, I didn't really on last Thursday, I didn't have a good sense of what it would really take or what they're thinking of. I would tell you that their statement to me was they felt it was a lot riskier to try to put this deeper excavation in and dewater. It's more risky because of more things potentially to go wrong with it. So the bid item, essentially we had 3 bid items on this job. We had one for, I call it administration, overhead and profit, all of the office work that has to be done. And their bid price for mobilization was like $55,000. And then we had 2 other bid items. One was for the pipe installed within the lake, and then another bid item for the pipe installed not in the lake, essentially. And so their bid price for the installation within the lake was $137,000. So of that $137,000, about $10,000 was going to be the guy drilling. That was about $10,000 of that price that they gave. And then all the rest of it was for the divers, for all of the other things that they had to do associated with getting that pipe all the way up, for the intake itself, for all the blocks to hold down the pipe, things like that. So they're not eliminating that bid item. That bid item is still valid because they're still out into the lake doing all this ancillary thing, but their drilling piece is going to be substantially more expensive than what they had carried in their bid for the work in the lake. So that's really all we're talking about, is that drilling piece. And then so this 93,000. Where'd they go? The 96.5 is really just to get themselves set up to be able to drill through that pipe. So probably more expensive than I thought it would be.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's not out of the ballpark of what it could take to do that.
It's out of my ballpark, my friend, I will tell you that.
So the pipe we put in to be a bypass pipe while we're doing all this construction, that was wasted money now?
I wouldn't say so, no. In fact, you guys have another project that you can, the intent was always, we would use it for that, but then it could be recycled and used for something else around town. And I know John has a use for that already. And that was part of the nice thing about having the town do the temporary, because then you could really utilize that project for another project that you had on store.
So the 12-inch pipe goes all the way to the treatment center? Treatment facility?
It does.
So why can't you run the pipe from there?
Because that's down about
24 feet.
24 feet. It's within and it's kind of in a confined space there. You have a generator, you have the plant. So just to be able to get that deep there now, you wouldn't have the groundwater probably wouldn't be as bad because you're getting distant from the wetlands now. But there's other constraints there. It'd be still this $90,000 to dig the hole.
You're gonna have to dig it down anyway, no?
Not at the plant, no. The plant, we're gonna only be like 5 to 6 feet deep at the plant. We're not gonna, and again, the reason that pipe is so deep at the plant is because it used to deliver water to the town by gravity.
Right. So when you're drilling this now, is this a drill like an artesian well drill? Only it goes horizontal?
Well, this will be a major machine. I mean, this will be.
So, but I mean, it's gonna go, I mean, I can't dig a fence post hole without hitting rocks. So, I mean, it's gonna drill through granite, it's gonna drill through whatever you may find in the lake?
It can, and what we would do is if we had ledge at a certain point, and we would just run along the ledge. You know, we wouldn't say, well, I want you to get.
I'm just nervous that we're gonna get like more of these.
There are more change orders associated with that.
Yeah.
I'm telling
Well,
you.
you know, everything is a risk
Yeah,
to some
I get
degree,
it.
and we want to try to minimize
Yeah.
the risk for sure.
So when we met the other day, we went over a few different things. So we're gonna have to discuss a bit of what those things were. So we talked about the plan of trenching from the facility to the wetland. So in other words, digging a trench and laying the pipe in from above ground and covering it over. So when I talked to John, he said that originally, back in the first thought process of this, that he was considering doing that, and he told me it didn't matter to him whether it was trenched or drilled, which makes sense to me, because at the end of the day, it's in the ground. So then he told me that really we're talking about from the wetlands out is where the change order comes in,
That's correct.
right? So if the change order comes in from the wetlands out, and we're still talking about drilling through the pipe, I guess we just said everything that I'm saying, but I have a hard time wrapping my head around $96,000 to drill a bigger hole. Because in essence, unless I'm missing something, that's what I'm hearing. To drill a bigger hole, which comes with a lot of things. And I learned some things the other day. I mean, it's kind of common sense anyway, if you've been around a little bit of dirt work. You got to sure it up. There's more water coming in. It's different soil, different depths, all the above. So there will be more work associated with it. But I don't know. It just doesn't make sense to me. $96,000 and we're digging the same hole that we were gonna dig originally. We're just going a little bit deeper.
Well, it's more than a little bit deeper.
A lot of it.
And
deeper.
it's the groundwater conditions are gonna be very difficult to deal with.
Can we come back? So not all the way to the treatment facility. Can we come back another 100 feet, dig our hole from there? Because the drilling is the same amount, whether you drill 5 feet to the left and 117, 1,700 feet to the right, or if you split that in the middle, and the drilling is the same either way, the amount. So can we come back away from the wetlands further? Like we were just kind of discussing here, get away from that water table a bit more to help go the extra depth we need to find the pipe. And then that's where the change order comes in. And we get a dollar amount for that change order and we go along about business so we can hit our deadline on the 17th.
Sure, the further you go towards the plant,
Yeah.
the deeper the pipe is in the ground.
Understood.
Because
Right.
the ground level is actually going up and the pipe is actually going downhill. So
Understood. Yeah,
the further, now, your question about, well, what if we got right next to the lake?
Yeah.
That would be good, except it's very, I don't know if you've been to the site, those are real wetlands there, and just to get out there to the lake, it can be challenging.
Mhm.
And especially if you're trying to get a piece of equipment out there, because there's really no access. And that was part of the beauty of trying to drill it from where it's higher and drier, is that we didn't have to get into those wetlands at all and build a road or some sort of other access to get out towards the lake. So again, I think that they've given us, I would say the price to do the drilling, maybe in my mind, is more reasonable than what it would cost to dig, to get down 20 feet in the ground under the conditions that we have there.
yeah, so that's our two options. Drill a whole new line completely for 85,000, or dig a deeper hole and find the existing pipe for 96.5.
Pretty much.
Neither one of those work for me. So we gotta come up with a different solution. I see no way feasible where a change order comes in at a third price of the original bid. Somebody didn't do their homework somewhere, and it's not my job to do the homework. So I don't know who missed the boat, but you don't do a 1/3 of the cost estimate on especially the first change order out of the gate. So,
I've done change orders many, many times on almost every single project. The last intake project we did, we ran into ledge and we spent $80,000 additional on ledge removal.
when we run into ledge, that's what we're gonna get. So it's gonna come back.
Well,
to
it's
more.
we're doing something different here.
Understood, but when we talked the other day, that was a concern of ours, is if you hit bedrock, then we're gonna have to figure something else and they're gonna come back with another change order. And I've lived here for 50 years and I've done a fair amount of digging, and like Scott said, you aren't digging anywhere around here. They don't call it the Granite State for nothing. It hurts equipment, shoulders and wallets. So I will tell you that this is not what I expected to see tonight. I will tell you that. And I'm a little disappointed in it. And it's nothing to do with you specifically, Mike. You're just the messenger. I'm not trying to shoot the messenger. But when we were standing out there talking the other day, the numbers were going the opposite way. And then they come back with a number and it's higher. So.
Well, that's the problem when you try to do something on the fly and instead of, let him sit down, work it out, put the numbers together. So again, I could, this description that he gave in the cover email to me, it broke down those numbers. I just have this one copy, but certainly, to look through that. So you can see what they're talking about and where the money is.
I mean, I also wouldn't say that it's not some Horizon's fault. I mean, we're talking, we thought the pipe was down 10 feet, where, it's below 20 probably. So, I mean, that's a pretty significant difference in the depth of the pipe. You guys should be able to figure that out, in my opinion, so.
If it
I mean,
would have
that- I
been,
mean,
we
that's
could have,
double.
and probably should have done a little more homework on doing on our own test pitting maybe during the design. I think we kind of knew where it was at 2 points. We knew where it was at the intake and we knew where it was at the plant and kind of drew a straight line between them. And for some reason, that's not where it came out. Intuitively, you would have thought they wouldn't have put it any deeper. They're digging this all by hand 100 years ago.
We can't
Why would they
figure
put it
out
any
more.
deeper than
Right.
they need?
So,
But you're also talking 100 years of erosion and all sorts of
So
stuff.
one of the things contractually that, just to throw this out there, that can
Yeah.
occur. There's a clause, a delay clause, we have to be proactive in our response and our directive to the contractor. He could get to a point where he just said, we can't do this job now, we expected to do this in the summer. We're getting into the fall, we're getting into next year, so it kind of makes the waters a bit murkier contractually in dealing with the contractor. And I mean, these guys, the longer the job is delayed for them, the more it costs them too, the more they have to kind of come back
so
and.
we're
figure out-
shooting to not hit that delay because that's the 17th, right? Because we
I-
talked about that last week. When is the deadline that we were trying to get all this fixed by? That was the 17th, right?
Yeah, well, the contract, the drilling contractor, of course, you guys all know that people are busy and it's not easy to get people. So they've already missed one opportunity where they actually mobilized some equipment here to get started. And then we couldn't get started and that equipment, that truck is still sitting out there at the treatment plant. Now, so far, there's been no discussion or no hint of, Mike, we're starting to lose money here, we're getting concerned. So we're still okay on that end. The drilling contractor, he can get back here this month. And I would say probably by the end of this month, we should be able to kind of be wrapping things up. If all went smoothly, relatively smoothly even.
Between the logger and now this, things haven't really gone smoothly.
They haven't.
And now, so basically what you're telling us is if we don't agree to the 85, they're gonna pack up and leave.
I'm not saying that.
That's what it sounded like.
They're gonna need some, well, I don't think they're gonna pack up and leave, but they're gonna be like, well, what do you want us to do? And
Why don't you
I'm
do
not
the
sure
original
what
contract said?
what else there is to do. I mean, I don't know what our other options are. And so again, I would say that what we're doing essentially is going back to what the original concept was. And maybe on my end, I shouldn't have tried to be clever or tried so hard to save some money that I maybe should have just gone with the original concept of drilling it from the beginning. And then we wouldn't be talking about a change order because this number would have already been in their bid
So what was the number associated with the original concept?
for the drilling.
Yeah, for
You know, I
that
don't
original
have that
concept.
right in front of me and I didn't do that estimate, but I know that the project was 550,000 for the intake.
Yeah.
Total amount.
Yeah.
So that
But there
included
was
the
a
engineering and
300 and
permitting. and-
something $1,000 number, 360 was what they had thought, and then that was the
It's on this sheet.
originally proposed,
Oh, it's not.
and then after it was reworked and everything, it come back to 236.
Well, it was the estimate that we did to, figure out how much money to try to get for the project
Yeah,
was 550. And
Right.
out of that 550, let's say 360 of it was for the construction piece itself.
Yeah.
So if we had 360 in it, and right now we're looking at 316. So we're actually still below what we had estimated it would cost to get that pipe up into the lake.
so when we were standing there, Mike pulled me aside and he made me aware of some funding, I would call them issues, that we became apprised of that morning. So then my question that I had for Mike while we were standing there aside from you guys was, out of the 550, that's just for the sake of round numbers, out of the 550, if we only use 200 of it, is the other money disappear, or does that stay with the town of Canaan to use somewhere else?
It would be up to you.
And Mike let me know that it is still available for the town of Canaan. So that's when, if you remember, we walked over, Mike played his hand, and I told you guys I was gonna hold my cards a little closer to my chest, and we're gonna make that money stretch a little bit further. And it's my job, right? We talked about, I answer to 3,800 people, not just one. And 2 years from now, if I see somebody at the store and they ask me why I agreed to a $96,000 change order, I damn well better have an answer for them. And at this point, I don't feel like I have an answer. Because when we left there, the agreement was, we were gonna dig a deeper hole and put some costs associated with that. And you just came back to me and told me that to dig a deeper hole and the costs associated with it are more than drilling the entire thing, so it's a bigger change order.
Well, to do a test pit, it's not 96,000 to do a deeper test pit.
Right,
And I could probably tell them, you guys didn't dig enough test pit, go ahead and do it.
Mhm.
But I don't know that it changes. What the $96,000 is when we find the pipe and it is down there at 12 or 18 feet deep. That's what the 96,000 is to be able to get that machine in that hole and to make sure the machine doesn't get flooded out with the lake water coming back into it and to control all the water that they're going to deal with, keep a safe excavation. So the test pit, we could ask them to do that, but to some degree, there's no additional value in doing that, in my mind, because, the pipe can't be too much deeper. Can't be deeper than it is at the plant, you know that.
right. Yeah.
And they'd probably hem and haw a little bit about, they'd say, well, what, now we got to set up pumps and we have to, and I could tell them, well, tough luck, but.
But they're not gonna hem and haw as much as the town of Canaan.
Well, if someone said, why did you do that? You can tell them because this is what our engineer recommended to us. And, I've been doing this for a while. I don't see a lot of options. I don't. I'm sorry. I wish in hindsight, like I said, maybe we should have just stuck with the original concept instead of changing that. If it had worked, it would have saved you about 100,000. That was my hope.
I know when we first discussed doing this project, and correct me if I'm wrong, John, but the original concept was to run a pipe through all of it.
We talked about it.
Through all of it.
Yeah.
We talked about it.
Right.
And what happened
Run a
was,
pipe through the existing pipe.
Absolutely.
Exactly,
That's what we originally discussed.
and that's what we're supposed to be doing, Scott. Yep. So I don't know, we're at a little bit of a standstill on my end. I gotta, I can't, in good conscience, make $100,000 decision that's gonna affect all of us on where that money goes. Now, look, I understand that by me saying yes to this isn't a tax issue thing in the immediate. But long-term, to me, it says it is, because if we don't make this money available for as many things as it can now, eventually that money eventually something else is gonna break. And that money's gonna have to come from taxation. So if I can do my due diligence, that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. That is strictly it. I want to stretch this money as far as absolutely possible. That's my job. Because if we can fix something now that in the future, we know is gonna break and we can do it out of this money, that's my goal. And if we spend $100,000 on a change order, it limits me to be able to do that, Mike. So, I don't have an answer for tonight, honestly. Well, if we had to have an answer for tonight, on my end of it, it would be, we gotta figure something else out.
What's the deadline they need to know?
Yesterday.
I mean, if you guys don't decide tonight, I'm just gonna tell the contractor that you didn't decide tonight, and you know, I don't know what.
Well, we may
the
decide
deadline
tonight,
will
but
be.
I'd still like to.
We might, yeah.
I have to,
Again, so
but
what I
you're
would
telling,
say is,
you're telling me there's no other option.
you know, I wish I could think of something. But I'm kind of at a loss for it. It's, I thought it was a good idea to try to use that pipe, and that's what I proceeded with. And, you know, I'll take responsibility for that. I thought it was a good idea. I thought it was gonna save some money. And it's just unfortunate now, and now I gotta be in here saying, and I guess it wasn't such a good idea after all,
And we
because it's
can't-
not what I thought it was.
And we
you know?
can't do it because we didn't locate the pipe, right?
We can't do it because the pipe is in a different location than what we really thought it was. That's the bottom line. And if we had shown it that deep on the plans and we bid it that way, we wouldn't be discussing anything with the contractor, because we'd say, well, that's what you bid to do.
It's a unique situation because if I come to your house to bid a paint job, I don't know what your budget is. But I equate this a lot like the school debacle that we got ourselves into in this town. Where the contractor says to us, you tell me how much money you have, and then I'll tell you how much it's gonna cost me to do the job. And that's where we're at here. So that gives a pretty easy invitation to say, those are our only two options. Sorry about your bad luck. So that's what I'm battling with. This is a,
Well, and Kingsbury came in at the lowest bid price
right,
by $100,000.
Yeah.
Now they're coming back and putting that money back in. So
Well, no, they didn't come in 100,000 under. The bids were actually very close. They were at 230, I believe, and
I thought they were within that distance as well, Stephen.
they were at 230, 770. The second bidder was 240, very close, and the third bidder was 250, 18. So it was a very competitive bid.
So where did that $300 and something thousand number come from that Stephen, myself, and Mike have rolling around in our head somewhere? And how do we get rid of that so we don't keep bringing it back up?
The original budget was put together a year and a half ago.
Okay,
The 360.
360.
so that's the budget they thought we had
uh,
going into the bidding
Yeah.
process. Is that
That
right?
was our estimate of what we thought it would cost, is 360. So again, what I can tell you, that $55 a foot that they've offered is not, they're not hosing you. It's a very fair number. So I don't, if I thought they were trying to pull the wool over our eyes or take advantage of the situation, I'd be the first one to tell you that, you know, this isn't right.
So you just sparked part of our conversation the other day. So that's what I mean. We got to get into this so we can get brainstorming back and forth of where we're at. So that's what I said the other day. So if the original proposal that we signed on already had a dollar amount associated for the drilling to go from the plant to the intake, why is that dollar amount so much different when we're drilling the same distance of footage?
First, I think it's, you want to get out of your mind from the plant to the wetlands. Because that price isn't changing. We don't care if he digs it or
Okay.
drills it. It's totally up to him how he does it. We're not going to pay him any more
Yeah.
or any less for it. And his bid price for that is, where's that, John?
Understood.
His
That was
bid price
actually-
for that is only 38,000, 38,700.
Yeah.
So that was going to be a relatively easy thing for them to do.
Yeah.
They opted, I mean, it's not done yet. They said, we're going to have the drill rig here already. So we're just going to have him drill it and then we don't have to dig it. But it's up to them completely whether they want to excavate for it or whether they want to drill it. They said they were going to drill it because the machine's already here and you don't have to mobilize to do it. He just has to turn around the other direction and go to the plant.
So taking that into consideration, never mind from the plant to the wetland, why is it so much more money to drill from the wetland out? Why is the cost so much different if we already had a price for drilling anyway?
The difference is reaming out a pipe, 250, what was that like, 250? Reaming out 550 feet of pipe and pulling another pipe back, it would have taken a half a day for them to drill that out. You know, there's nothing that they would encounter. It'd be a small machine, you know, it's a very simple thing to do, which is why it was only a $10,000 price to do that part of it. The big increase in cost here is really that we're drilling all the way out now. So it's a long distance. Instead of just submerging that pipe in the lake, which that's not much effort to do that either. They put this whole pipe together, it floats. They have a diver and a boat, and we put blocks of concrete on top. It's pretty
So
simple.
I guess that's my point is why don't we just still do that part that in the part that's in the lake instead of drilling the 1,700 feet, drill the 200 feet from their pit now.
You could drill out into the lake. And again, though, what's going to happen is you're going to drill, we're going to come up, and then we're going to go along lake bottom, then we're going to go back down. So it looks like a snake now.
But once it's full, it's full. It's not going to suck air once it's full.
Hopefully not. I've got a job in Newport, though, that they called me up and we did it 2 years ago, and they said the pipe was floating and so somehow air was getting into that pipe. And it's like a pontoon boat, the guy said. It's like when you start to get air in that HDPE pipe, it just wants to come up because there's nothing, it's not like that big heavy cast iron pipe holding itself down. But that is another option to not go the full 1,700 feet.
One thing that's puzzling me is how do they give an accurate bid not knowing how deep the pipe was?
They look at the plans and they say, this is what,
So they guesstimate.
yeah, well, here's the plan. This is what it says we have to do. And they base their price on that plan. And with those three bid prices being close like that, they all thought the same thing, that looked doable, and they gave a good price to be able to do it.
But in the original plan, they were going to come out of the water and lay pipe on the bottom of the lake. And you're saying now you can't do that because you're going to get air in it. So
Well, that is, I mean,
But
I'd say
your
any
original
other
plan-
option I could think of is that would be that you don't go, if you want to just go 100 feet out into the lake. I mean,
No, what he's saying though is don't drill out under it.
what I'm saying is in the bid we bid on, they were going to go out through the existing pipe, which comes up out 100 feet in the
250
lake.
feet,
Okay, and then it's going to be laid on the ground at bottom thing.
yes.
And you're
Yep.
going to still have that possibility of having a high spot. You would have a high spot based on your argument just now.
Yeah,
Now you're saying that we
it
shouldn't
wouldn't
do
be
that.
as drastic as, so this concept eliminates the high spot, which is one thing that I like about it. Because it takes away one thing
Yeah,
that
for
we'd have to
a third of the cost.
potentially deal with. But that is probably the only other option I could say is that we tell them, we don't want you to drill out 1,700 feet. We want you to drill under the wetlands. We want you to drill 200 feet out, and then from there, we're going to lay it on the bottom of the lake.
So how many feet would that be? From the test pit currently?
1,100 feet.
So that'd be $55,000. Minus 80.
From the test hole, it's 1,100 feet?
Oh,
So
no,
where
no,
the
no,
pipe
no,
goes up
1,100 feet of, on the bed.
on
It's
the bed.
250 plus three.
So how much would they be drilling?
550, almost the same cost as what they're drilling.
500 feet.
Yeah,
So
550,
a third of the distance of 1,700.
exactly, yeah.
It'll be a third of the cost. So it'll be 35,000.
And what's the negative effects of that?
Well, just you're getting this effect. So I mean, but it's all underwater. That's the thing. I mean, it's.
You know, the pipe's still going to be shallow there. It's going to be ballasted down, but that would probably be, you know, talking it through here, that would be
Yeah.
another option.
Can you get us a quote for that?
Sure can.
Why not?
Okay, Mike, he's like.
No idea.
Hey,
But this is why it takes a minute, and that's why that meeting the other day, 2 hours, we stood there in the parking lot over the trunk of a car, basically. And we had it was a good meeting by the time we were done, but getting into it, how do we get this going? So the longer we took the other day, the more yeah, the more dialogue on each side came into play. And so from what I'm hearing, then why don't dig the test pit like we were gonna, drill basically the length of the wetland and where the pipe comes up out of the ground now, even if you're not going
You
through
don't
the
need to just
existing.
drill the test pit, because if they're gonna drill, they would drill from where they are right now.
He's gotta lower the rig and they're
Yeah.
gonna actually, they make like a shelf.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they lower it right down.
So, right,
into
no
it.
test pit, exactly,
Yeah.
Stephen, but an area to set the drill rig. And we could basically drill alongside of the existing pipe and come out in the lake bed where that comes out, give or take a couple feet, and then run that along, and that in essence is doing the same thing as if we would have sleeved that pipe.
Similar,
Right?
you don't have the protection, well, if we get 200, 300 feet out into the lake, I think that is what you want to do. Inside that 12-inch pipe, it afforded a lot of protection for the HDPE, which I liked about that.
Yeah.
But, once we were past the existing intake, it didn't matter anyways, because it was just going to be on the bottom of the lake. So yeah, I'll approach them, essentially a third or so of it. I don't know that the number is going to be 2/3 less.
Right.
As long as
it might-
it's not two.
It might turn into $65 a foot instead of 55, but I can do that. I'll do it immediately.
Okay.
And I'll get that information to you guys. I'm hoping you can make a decision though somehow or other, like before
If you
your
give
next
us the
meetings for
information.
2 weeks, right, or so. or-
Well, if you can get that to us as soon as possible, we can post a special meeting and vote just on it.
Yeah, we'll
Okay.
get together and go over it. Yeah.
Okay.
All right?
But so we're all on the same page. The change order that we're looking for at this point is how much will it be to drill from the wetland, a separate pipe, not to sleeve, drill from the wetland out to the existing intake, and then run along the ground from there,
Yep.
right? That's what we're talking.
Now, ideally, they'd say, they gave us a price of $55 a foot. So if we tell them we wanted to drill 500 feet instead of the 1,700 feet, it would be nice if it was 55 times that length, but I wouldn't guarantee that.
Let them know that we're looking
Specific.
as close to a guarantee for that as we can. I mean, we understand.
I would
that
think
they're-
so though, because
They're
that,
trying to make money.
well, that price is for a certain machine. It's a different machine, but it's still, it's for what they gave us a price for, it's the same machine, I believe. And I think that maybe
You lost
that's
me
the
on
best
that.
compromise in between the
It's a
two.
bigger machine when they go longer distance. The
Yeah.
rods are thicker and
Yeah.
they're longer, and this is a big next size down machine.
Yeah.
See, they're only going 500 feet. That's the one that they're gonna go from the plant to the hole,
Right.
the smaller machine, and then they're gonna do the same thing now. If we go out 238 feet, basically, will be another 500 feet. So it'll be 1,000 feet total.
Which is what the existing pipe is, correct?
Exactly.
That's what we're gonna sleeve,
Yeah.
is about 1,100 and something feet, right?
But now the pipe will keep going on top of the.
But that was in the
lake.
original, that was in
Exactly,
the
that's in the
original with
original,
it being
exactly,
weighted
on the
down.
lake bottom,
Yeah.
it'll be weighed down.
All right, so if you can get that to us as quick as possible. that'd be
Okay,
Good talk. Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Sure.
I wish I didn't have to come here tonight. I was hoping, it started out rough and then it just got rougher,
It's
to
getting
be
rougher,
honest with
right?
you. And,
Yeah, we're feeling your pain too, so, yeah. All right, back to work, my friend. Yep.
All right, next thing on the agenda is the transfer station.
have a good night.
You too,
All right,
Mike.
thanks
Thank
for
you.
coming in.
Issues, whether you have any questions, but put out a report. And the report is that we've had two problems in the last 3 weeks, none of which were expected. The first problem was that the RAM that we were using, we've used it for 7 years. And it's 33 years old, it died. And it was evaluated by a mechanic who said that there's nothing left to fix on the RAM. The RAM is a trailer that pushes material out the back door. So I had it for 7 years. It was 17 grand when we bought it. So we switched over, we had to do something, otherwise close down recycling. Actually, we did close it down briefly. And we switched it over to using roll-off boxes and taking the recyclables to Casella's operation in White River. That is a more expensive net operation than going to South Portland. And it's about $20 a ton more expensive to take it to Casella than it is to take it to South Portland. So even with the transport to go to South Portland, it's still a better deal to go to South Portland. On the other hand, Casella is very good about it, and their pull charge to pull our boxes, we do not have a roll-off truck, was $2.95. And that's a very reasonable price. Last time we bid with Casella was about 8 or 9 years ago, and the price then was about $3.75. So that's very generous price on their part. So we have been taking roll-off boxes to White River. So far, we've moved 4 in the last week. We only have 3 boxes, so now we're gonna have a rental charge in addition to that for another box. And the reason is it can't be immediately dumped, so they have to stage it until they can work it into the schedule and then send it, but meanwhile, have a swap box back here. And that was working until the second problem, which is the floor of the ram. The floor, I'm sorry, the floor of the compactor. I don't want to mix up my terms. So ram is the trailer that pushes the material out. The compactor is the thing that pushes it into the roll-out box. And that compactor is old. It's original equipment. Is that right?
Yeah.
Original equipment, and it goes back, I think, until the 70s or somewhere in there.
I don't know what year they bought it, but it's
It's a long time.
original. The
So-
2 that they bought.
Yeah, so the ram, the compactor that's used for the trash is the same age as the one that's on the ground that we're now running recyclables through. We had that examined about 8 months ago, 10 months ago, by Recycling Mechanical out of southern New Hampshire. And I asked them at the time, well, should we swap that and put that up on the recycling? The answer was no. And the question is why? This is because it isn't worth doing it. It's old, its life is over. And we don't recommend rebuilding any equipment that's that old. Okay, so the idea then was to continue using it. There is an option for all this stuff, and that is there's still a grant program that's going to come up late this fall. The news on that is it's a 4-year program. It's not an immediate program, so it's over the next 4 years. It's a lot of money, but it is a program that's available. So where are we right now? Well, we got a box that Dale put back together, or a compactor we put back together.
Yeah, the floor, yeah.
And thank you very much for that. The floor is peeling off inside of the, basically where the ramp slides on the compactor to go into the roll-off. So it's operational again. Doesn't take away from the fact that the machine is showing its age severely. So the question, and we had, as you got an earlier report about Guy England's evaluation of the 3 live floors. We did not look at the MAC. The MAC is working fine. That's the one on the traction. But we did look at the east trailer. We looked at the, make sure I get the names right, Stecco RAM and the spec live floor that we got out of the Merrimack facility. Well, we got it from a broker, but it came from Merrimack. So he looked at all 3 of them, and he said, he confirmed that the RAM, the spec trailer, is toast. That's the one we've been using. He looked at both the east trailer and the other one, and he thought that of the 3, the one that had the most promise to provide service with minor fixes was the spec trailer, which is the most recent one we acquired. He gave a statement at the time that it would take 2 days or 3 days in the shop, no materials other than the scrap that they got in the shop. And he wanted to beef up 3 areas on the driver's side of the back axle He said they did the passenger side, but not the driver's side. So he'd recommend doing that. And that was his conclusion. There are other people that have a difference of opinion on it. He did do heavy trucks and trailers when he worked in Vermont, in New Hampshire before. And he did them down in Virginia. He's applied or I think he's applied to get his license up here by reciprocity. So I don't know if that's going to happen or not. In light of that conversation, I asked whether I should get it inspected or not by somebody else, and the consensus, at least Guy and myself, and a couple of other folks, was to send it up to a reputable place to get inspected. And the reputable place is Freightliner over by the fort. And there's an appointment set up to see if what Guy believes is the case is real or not. The only other issue the Guy found, which is not a structural issue, is the supports under the last 3 feet of the floor where the slats ride. And he said those really eventually will have to be replaced. And he said, are they working? I said, yeah, it works fine. There aren't any problems at all with loading and unloading the trailer. And his conclusion was that, well, it certainly should last 5 years anyway. The last one we bought lasted 7 years. This one's a newer trailer. This one's 20 years old. The one that just died was 33 years old. So
What vehicle did we hitch this up to test the
truck.
hydraulics?
That's how it works.
Is it really? No
Yes.
shit, Mike.
Sorry.
Jesus, that's how it works. I mean,
Well, I'm sorry.
thanks, Captain Obvious. But here's an obvious one for you. I was down there eating lunch one day in my car with my dog sitting between the 2 trailers when JR came down with the truck to hitch it up. And the fittings were the wrong size hitched to our truck.
Okay, what did he do?
Nothing.
Obviously, didn't hitch it up.
No, actually, what he did was he went and got the hose off the E, swapped it off on that one, and it worked fine.
So why don't you let me know that instead of that's how it works, Mike?
Well, you asked me, I don't want to. Don't want to. Okay, so in any event, the numbers, if you continue to do it yourself, is somewhere between $13,000 and $17,000 more expensive to do it.
For a year.
Per year. And if you do it yourself, it's about $10,000 less than, so it's still more expensive. And it's all in the chart, but it's more expensive to do it with a roll-off. We would have to acquire used roll-off equipment. Now, I understand people believe it's a mistake to buy used. I got it. But let me just throw out 2 pieces of information. Total trash we do, we use 1,000 tons. At 20 tons of pull, you can get the idea how many tons. It's actually, we're running about 23 tons of pull. So you're looking at about once a week is when our trash goes out. So it's about 50 pulls. Like each pull is about 40 miles. It's not a lot of miles. If you're looking at the recycling, you've got with the live floor that we have that's available, you got a total of between 12 and 14 pulls a year going to South Portland. There's no way you can justify a new live floor trailer for that much mileage. It's just, it would be ridiculous. It's 145,000. So you can't justify it.
I don't know that that's an option anyways.
Okay.
So, look. You were asked to get this thing checked.
Yeah.
It's already been checked a few times, but this is the last time.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't really want to dump any more money into this stuff for this
It would
year.
cost you more if.
Just listen to me. Okay, so we'll continue with the roll-offs for now until we come up with a new plan. I know.
You don't want to go inspect.
No, you get it inspected.
Okay.
That's it. We're not spending another dime. We're not doing anything else after that, okay? Unless we get unless a miracle happens.
Just a quick question. If it comes back from Freightliner, and they say, well, yeah, you ought to beef up those 3 areas. The guy said, he claims that he can do it in a couple of days in the shop, and he wants.
Well, let's make that decision when that
Okay,
happens.
that's fine.
I'm
So
not
you're
I'm not
talking-
gonna speculate right now.
When you say inspected, Mike, are you meaning someone look it over or someone put a sticker on it?
We say somebody put a sticker on.
Right, so that's.
Which is
the difference.
actually
So the money's
improves
gonna
in
be
resale
spent
if we're gonna
before-
turn around and sell it too, so.
Well, they can inspect it and not pass it.
So here's a question.
So we don't have to put money into it.
So it's gonna go one of two ways. They're gonna look at it and say, yep, slap a sticker on. The other way is they're gonna say, no, I can't because you gotta do A, B, and C. If A, B, and C cost 50,000, it's ridiculous, we dump it. If A, B, C costs 20,000, it's ridiculous, we dump it. If A, B, C requires 2 or 3 days.
Yeah, we
to
get the
shop,
point.
Okay.
So that's where we're at on this.
Right, I agree.
This trailer should have been sold a month ago. So I know what a situation that we're in, but I just don't want to keep throwing good money after bad here. You have reports that say it's junk. It's becoming an issue.
Also, once this trailer gets inspected with a sticker on it, so you can haul it up and down the road, you still gotta repair the aluminum slats in the back before you can use it. They're sticking up
Well, that's just it. I
2
mean,
feet.
we got to know what's going on money wise here before we
Right.
dump anything
No.
else. Okay,
So we dump out, so let's just say that we take it over to ATG and they say, okay, it needs A, B, C, and D for us to put a sticker on it, and then we bring it back here, and Guy works on it for a few days, and he gets those things done. Then we bring it back to them and they put an inspection sticker on it. Now, so that's what it needed to make it roadworthy.
Mhm.
So now what does it need to make it usable and functional? And the floor isn't functional. Is it wrong, Mike?
No, you're wrong.
Okay,
So if you look at other pieces we
Yeah.
have floors, go look at the east trailer as an example. It was a much worse shape, and the only reason we stopped using it because the hydraulics were shot. Okay, so it's gonna cost us $40,000 to put on all new hydraulic pumps, okay? It would be better to fix the ends of the slats. Again, that's a 2-day issue in the shop. We have all the materials. You have the guy that can do it. So it is a question of time, not dollars. And I understand, don't believe me, talk to Guy. But you looked at it and there are 30, you know what the slides are? Slides are about yay long and they're slotted and they
Yeah,
basically,
clamp
the
on.
slats drive up and back and
Right.
forth on the slots.
high fat.
So there's 30 slides, so we already have the slides, okay? So they need to be in the back.
Yeah.
But they pop on, they literally, you lift the slat, pop it on, and then it slams, you take a plank basically, wheel on it, and it snaps back onto the slides. So that is not a big expense of it. So I agree with the concept, go find out if you can inspect it. If you can't, what's it cost to inspect it? If you can't, you gotta inspect it. What's it cost to make it good quality, lasting you 7 to 10 years? That's really what the goal ought to be, at least 7 years. And if it's the same as what was perfectly acceptable when we did the Ram and when we did the East trailer and when we did the Mac trailer, it still saves you $13,000 a year. So
All right,
You can
so
make the decision
we want to
when
see
we
the
want.
numbers after the inspection on Thursday, but don't do
Yeah.
anything else.
I won't.
Any questions?
Scott, do you think maybe you guys should go and talk to these people and,
Where, Freightliner?
yeah, do it yourselves? I mean, as a select board, can the 3 of you get together and go down there?
Wow. There is an issue with 3 of us going down there
Well,
together,
2 of you.
or even 2 of us. Only
Okay,
can be one,
so how are you
or
guys
3 can
ever
go
gonna
separately.
How do you ever come to an agreement then if the 3 of you cannot?
Look, that's state law. That's got nothing to do with anything we've decided here, okay? Yes,
Yeah,
exactly. You have to.
So why don't you do that?
Even other than that, in the workshop that Stephen and I attended this past spring, the gentleman who was given the workshop, one of the sections in the workshop was for select board members. And the conversation that the gentleman given the workshop, what he had with everybody taking the course is you can have more than one select board member in a place at one time. What you cannot do is discuss how you will be voting on things.
Well, you can't vote, but you have to keep with it. You can vote you have to post it, you can do that, we just have to notice the public.
So that's what I'm saying, but
We can do it. You just
But-
can't do it secretly.
But the belief in Canaan is if Dan Collins is at Canaan Street Lake at the fishing derby and Stephen Freeze shows up, one of us has to leave. That is not,
No, that's an
not true.
accidental meeting. That's not the same thing. This is a deliberate thing we're doing together.
right, but as long as we're not
Mike, who's
discussing
bringing
what
the
our
trailer
votes
to the
are gonna
inspection?
be. Huh?
JR is,
What
and I
time?
would, 8 o'clock, but I would respectfully ask, I don't want to be there. I want it to be a professional review of the equipment.
Oh my God,
So
that
I
drives me,
really-
so I tell you what, let's tell Matt Charbonneau and let's tell John Dyer that they're not professionals and that their shop and their opinion don't hold weight. And that,
Just
let's
what
get to
I'm-
the state of New Hampshire and tell them that Matt Charbonneau shouldn't have his inspection license for
I
heavy
would
equipment.
just ask that there be an independent review of that thing by Vic.
How is Matt Charbonneau or John not independent? Do you think I greased their pocket or something? Is that what you're saying? You tell me how that's not an independent review. I am formally asking you to explain to me how those two people are not an independent review.
Why would you want to take care of people in your own town? You know, I mean, that's what we should be doing is, you know, helping our community by helping other people.
I would
I
like to.
mean, Mike, you gotta let these guys do their job and you do your job.
Okay.
Your job is to figure out where the money and how the money is, not to make decisions whether you're gonna go buy that piece of equipment.
As a
It's up to
taxpayer,
the board to figure out if they want to,
as a taxpayer in the town, which I've been for years,
so haven't I.
okay, I thought my job was to try to keep the cost down as much as I can.
Your thought is that you think you run this town.
No, I'm sorry.
And that's what you have said to several people, that this is your town and you're gonna do what you wanna do, and that's
Well, I'd
bullshit.
like to know who said it. I really would, because I think I call these guys all the time and how many times did I call you guys today? You know, so that's just, and I defer to them. All I'm saying is, I came to this town with a proposal at 10 years ago, 11 years ago, when you were paying a lot more money for tracks than you should have been. And I gave you a proposal, and that worked for 12 years. And now it's not acceptable anymore. And last year I did 8 studies to show why it's still a valid issue. Still a valid issue. I'm all done in less than 60 days. There's a new person that's coming to take over. I'm happy about that. And I'm sure you're happy about that.
Yes, I am very
Okay,
happy. 'cause I
But
don't-
my only concern is that before we make a decision, not based on money, I think I would like to at least see an independent look at it in terms of whether it's inspectable.
I have time on Thursday morning to follow JR. and
That's fine. But
So it still doesn't answer my question.
not answering.
What I don't understand is that Matt Charbonneau looked at it, John Dyer looked at it, both of them are professionals. You got their opinion on it, and it was all settled here, I believe, well, up there, the last time I came to a meeting. And next thing I hear is you go get this guy over this new mechanic named Guy involved. Why did you get him involved after you already had 2 professional people describe what was wrong with that trailer? Now you
asked-
go drag this mechanic into it. He doesn't know the town budget. He just got here.
So I asked that
confused.
to happen because I wanted to have enough information to make a good decision on what we're doing. The trailer that we're using for recycling died, and that's what propelled the information, the change of doing it. No decision is made. I just want to know what we had to do with. We have 3
But what I'm
trailers.
saying is,
We have
this guy
3
doesn't
trailers.
have a clue. This guy named Guy doesn't have a clue
He
about this
actually
town.
does, if you've had a chance to meet him, and he's very knowledgeable, so.
But he doesn't know our budget. He doesn't know the town.
I
doesn't
didn't
know what
ask
we're
him to.
going
That's
through
not what I
here.
asked him about. I asked him to look at the equipment.
He's
Does
from
he?
Canaan.
He just showed up.
From Danbury.
So-
All right. Look, we're getting out of
This
control
is
here.
exactly what I said. I thought the problem would be is we put our brand new mechanic into a pretty good bind. And I just said this to these guys before the meeting started.
Dragged him in.
Anybody who's been paying attention to the meetings believes that we've had reputable shops that say the trailer's garbage. Now we've put him in a pickle.
Yeah.
What I don't want, I do believe we hired a good mechanic. And I do believe the guy is knowledgeable. And I don't want tonight to spoil the town's appetite of our new department head as a mechanic. Please don't, because I think he's worthy. And Stephen let me know that he asked this of him. We discussed it earlier. We're not always in agreement up here. I don't agree with it, but what I don't want is for us to leave here thinking that Guy England, our new mechanic, is not a worthy employee. I believe he is. So let's not make opinions from Guy, any of us, of one instant. I think we hired a good guy, so don't let this trailer thing that's screwing us all up, screw up our relationship with him as well.
We're leaving it as, we get the price, that's it. And that, we're not, I'm so sick and tired of hearing this, about this trailer. So, all right. Next thing on the agenda is the budget versus actual.
Okay. So I have asked you folks for guidance. Make it clear. Every year for the last 12 years, I've asked the board of selectmen for guidance on what to do with the budget. I do it at the beginning of the budget process. I also meet with all the department heads to find out what they want, what their wish list is. We try to work it together as department heads, trying to come up with a way to afford the things that they think that they really need. This has been a brutal year so far. The earliest draft of this budget was an 18% increase in taxes, which is obviously impossible. If I push for an 18% increase in taxes, you all are hanging. Okay. So that's not what I've done. We've had 2% average for the last 12 years. This has been the worst year ever on budgeting. It's still a problem. A lot of it has to do with utilities. It has to do with electricity and fuels. It has to do with pay. In order to be competitive, what are we doing with the cost of living? Currently, the cost of living is 8.7% increase over last year. It has to do with motivation of employees that are underpaid, or they believe that they're underpaid because of what's happening with spending power. So there's a whole bunch of issues, plus the health insurance issue in terms of what's going to happen, and nobody knows what that is yet. Ordinarily at this time, I'm ready to go to the budget committee, which meets on the 15th. I need to get direction from the board tonight of what a reasonable percentage increase is on the tax rate. If you tell me what's reasonable, I will do my level best to bring it in at that. I likewise, if I hear you tell me it's 1%, I can't deliver that. There's no way I can do that. But if you tell me what you believe, then I will try to get it to come into that. This budget, as you see, there's two parts of it. There's a single sheet, which is a revenue side, and there's the expense sheet, which is 8 pages long. On the expense side, we have another major issue, and that is this year there was requested increases in heavy equipment, meaning fire department and highway. So, and it's a lot of increase. It's in the orders of hundreds of thousands of dollars of increase. So we're trying to get through that with the CIP committee, and we got a ways to go before that's going to be done. So I have proposed a budget as the opening draft to go to the budget committee, and it's coming from me. But I have in here an 8.78% increase overall in the budget, and that includes more money for capital reserves for fire and for ambulance and for highway. It includes cost of living, and it includes fuels, all the fuel increases, which look reasonable at this point. When you look at the revenue side, on the back side of that, it shows a tax increase of 7.5%. Part of that would go away in the following year because I don't think the fuels are going to be the same in the following year. I think electricity is never going to go back down. Once it's up at 150%, it is not going to go back down. It would take an act of God to get it down. But on the fuels, I think it will flow with the market more, and it'll probably drop down from where it was a month ago. So if you would be so kind as to tell me what I should be shooting for, I will try to make this happen in the next week.
So this 8.78%, that's what you're at now?
Yeah.
No,
I
that's
wrote it down.
increase in budget. It's
That's the budget.
7% in
And I-
tax.
8.7 is the CPI.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm sorry, I misunderstood. So at the top of the page, it says 2023.
I'm looking at page 6 here at the bottom,
Page 6.
under general.
That happens to be 8.7 as well. Yeah. It's the same. They're both the same number. So that 8.78 is with an increase in the capital reserves. It's with all the fuels going up. It's with keeping the faith with the employees in terms of what several of you discussed with the back in March. And also with individual changes that were made during the year. That's all covered in this document. And frankly, if I find more revenue, it probably ought to go into capital reserves for highway and fire. Because it's still short. So in here, I went from a total of between fire and highway was 220,000. And now it's gonna be up to 280,000. So it's $60,000 higher. And it really needs another $50,000 or $60,000 in there to make it.
The 8.78 is how much per household?
That drops because there's other revenues that will offset it. So if you look at the revenue sheet. The revenue sheet is 7.5% increase in taxes on a $150,000 house, that would be $70 a year.
So it's not great, but it's not horrendous either.
No, I mean, it's been pointed out to me, if you take a $200,000 house, it's like $100, and that's a fairly expensive house, even with the inflation on houses. And I was toying this year as opposed to other years, where I just tried to keep it as low as possible, period. I was toying this year by realizing that A, you can't keep it that low. It has to go up. And B, what does it mean on the lowest income household? So I used to do 200,000, and I will do a $200,000 house for the warrant article, or at least give it to my successor, show them how to do it. And that's all well and good, but the real test is somebody living on a quarter-acre lot with a mobile home that's 30 years old. What's that gonna do to him? The answer is it's gonna raise his taxes for the year $70. On the other hand, this wasn't created by us, anybody in the town of Canaan. All this crap was created by the inflationary increases in fuels and in wages and just market conditions.
So I'm on the capital improvement committee, and we are doing a pretty real overhaul because we all are coming to the realization that the numbers aren't realistic. So one of the things that we found is that there have been virtually no increase in the projected amount to set aside per item that came out right in the last decade.
Per item, that's correct. We did it on a few things, but
Right.
not everything.
But for the majority of the items for the last decade, we haven't changed the forecasted amount that we're gonna have to put in for our capital improvement plan. So it's getting ready to hit us pretty hard right now. The other thing that I would tell you that I've noticed as a new board member over the year and a half, when I first came on the board, I thought it sounded like a decent thing that we were debt-free. And I've come to the conclusion that that only works if you have enough money in your back pocket to fund everything that keeps you debt-free, and we don't. So we're not debt-free. We're debt-free, but we have maintenance issues and equipment that is failing and capital improvement program that hasn't been updated to funding amounts. And so the debt-free thing to me personally, I speak only for myself, doesn't seem like such a great idea anymore. Keeping the taxes at a low percentage rate per year, of course, is what we want to do, and that's what Mike's asking us now. But when you keep them too low for a decade, coupled along with the other things that I just talked to you about, it all hits you at once and you run into that block wall. And that's where we're at. And I think we've got some good people working on it. I think the CIP committee, we're trying hard, but that's only one portion of it. But I think it's my job as a select board member to let everybody know kind of why we're having to do this. And so, you know, and a few people have heard me say a debt-free household only works to me is if I can pull the money out of my pocket to stay debt-free. So it worked good while we had the money in reserve to stay debt-free, but now we don't.
Just a couple of quick comments, and I applaud what the CIP committee is doing, and I'm thankful for Dan's on that committee and other people.
You
around.
as well, Mike, you're working hard on it.
So I applaud that all of us doing this effort. There's two parts of this. 2 years ago, we bought a 6-wheel dump truck for $170,000. So a 6-wheel dump truck now is minimum of $213,000 to $225,000. That was not something anybody projected 2 years ago or even a year ago. This is a function of the economy. We bought a 10-wheel dump truck for $190,000. That's now $275,000.
Yeah.
$275,000. That is not a 5% increase. If we had logically, we're playing around with a 10% number now. If we had applied a 10% factor across the board for the last 5 years, we still wouldn't have hit it. And we also are accelerating the replacements. So in the highway department, there's like 6 major replacements planned for the next 12 months. And originally we were told, well, you're keeping the trucks 20 years. We're not. We're keeping the trucks 7 to 10 years. Right now it's about 10 years. And that is a reasonable period of time to keep trucks. Not if they're not repaired. If they're not repaired, they're shipped. Okay, so those are all parts of the equation. And then the last comment on the budget is all of this on CIP is exacerbating the problem. But you still got $200,000 in new costs that are related to fuel and electricity.
Absolutely.
And it's not a damn thing. Actually, there is an item on the agenda that I wanted to talk about in 10 seconds. And that is community power. We need to bargain better on our electricity. We need to do that.
So before we get onto that.
Yeah.
You wanted a number.
Yeah.
So I don't see how we can go down from the number that you have projected on.
If I can, I'm gonna come back and tell you. I've done this every year.
The 8.7, when does that came out?
13th, I think is when I get it. I'll revise this.
So you don't even know 8.7 may be low.
I'm hoping it's high.
Yeah.
Because there was a major adjustment last year in August.
Yeah.
Okay, so when we run August to September to August this time, I'm hoping it's gonna be somewhere around 7.5, which should drop it a point.
So this is July's number?
That's July's number. And the number we get next week is gonna be August number.
I mean, to Dan's point, and your point, we do have some big expenses hitting this town right now that,
Yes.
a lot of unforeseen stuff and stuff that, hey, we could have planned better for, so.
Hindsight's 2020.
Well, absolutely. No, I
Tennessee's
mean,
not
I-
here, okay, but I
We're
want
gonna
to
try
give,
to fix that going forward, I think is what Stephen and I are saying.
I wanted to give kudos to Hennessy. Hennessy came in with a proposal on ambulances to change it from 175 to 375, okay? And as you well know, both of you were in the committee meetings. There were a bunch of pointed questions asked about why did we need to go from the 175 to the 375? As a result of that conversation and going back and meeting with the rest of the emergency management team, he changed it back down to 175 by changing the nature of the item he's buying.
Right.
Okay, that's an example of what has happened over the last 12 years with departments. They have tried to find better ways of doing it. Even Bob Cushman, who's our new highway superintendent,
Yeah.
wants new equipment, but he has a proposal, which you're going to talk about sooner or later,
Yeah.
but he has a proposal to replace an older truck with a newer truck, but it's still a used truck. So how that works out, that's up to you guys to talk about. Although I can't picture it happening tonight, but okay, that's fine.
I don't mind buying used, I just don't like to buy used up.
So the long and short of it is that we have people that are trying on
Yes.
both ends to cut down the cost so it isn't as high. And at the same time, try to figure out a different funding for it. The proposals we've seen on straight lease, you asked about the straight lease, and Bob came in with the straight lease, and I saw the numbers this afternoon. It's not good. It's, just on a grader, it's a total increase over the 5-year period of something like $60,000 or $70,000 out of just buying it on a straight lease purchase, okay? So it isn't gonna work out spectacularly well. But we are looking at leases, lease purchase with a buyout, lease purchase with no buyout, just getting out of, or just not a lease purchase, just a lease and getting out of it, lease with maintenance. So those are all the options that are being looked at. And I just finished doing the, don't know if I sent them to you or not. I think I did send them, I know I sent them.
You did,
earlier today. So you got the revised CIP budget, so we're directed by the committee, which is to go with 10%. So I did both compounded and non-compounded, and we still got huge issues. If you look at the negatives, they're all over the place. So it's gonna take all the creativity and all the goodwill that everybody in working in this exercise, which is probably 20 people, can put into it to get us there, because it's not working. And a chunk of that is just a virtue of we have upped it every year. Obviously, not as much as we should have in light of what we got for huge increases this year, but we have done. And every department head has been involved for the last 12 years.
Well, and I appreciate the new ideas coming in from Bob and from the department heads, you know, John as well, and you know, been part of some of those meetings, but
It's gonna be a challenge.
it is, so.
And those brainstorming ideas of what we're gonna need going forward, so.
All right, community power options.
I can go with the 7.5.
Yeah.
Okay. So in doing the budget, you tear apart, if you're gonna stop problem solve, you gotta tear apart every part of the problem. Part of the problem is where the costs are coming from, what can you do about the costs? The one thing we have historically not done recently, we did it about 3 or 4 years ago when people were brokering electricity. And at the time we looked at it 3 years in a row, and when we looked at it, it didn't work. Where somebody will call up and say, I'll sell you electricity for less than what Liberty does. Okay, so the people selling that are taking advantage of the scheduling of electric rates. It will sell you what looks good when the rates are highest, but then you end up paying more than you would have for Liberty when the rates go low. And it's historically factual. That's what has happened for years and years and years. Starting a year or so ago, I guess it's probably 2 years or 3 years at this point, there was a group that got together to work on community power, which means getting access to power costs that are less as a community. This is not a communist conspiracy or socialism. It's just getting somebody to bargain for it. And it's purely optional on behalf of everybody that wants to either use it or not use it. It is being used by 15 municipalities right now. They end up using the expertise to help get better rates. The public can use them for their rates as well as the municipalities, and it cuts the cost for everybody. It has some costs associated with it, but it's primarily a volunteer committee that works with the town to try to put together a plan to keep the rates low. And to give you an example, I was looking at one in Walpole. Walpole put together a plan so that they could drive down their rates through negotiations, and they had a person that worked with them for, it was a couple of grand to give them the expertise they needed to bargain. This is all discretionary, so it means it's up to the town to do whatever they want to do or not do. It's up to the individuals to decide what they want to do or not do. There is a chart that's in here that shows what that process looks like. I signed up as a volunteer for Canaan in my personal life. In other words, I didn't do it on behalf of the town. But I think that that is a viable approach to come up with some way to give us the expertise to try to bargain on power rates. And we would be crazy not to. And Scott, don't shoot me. But I think the time has come to look at solar power for the town, because for towns, for municipalities, for things like the power to be used at the wastewater plant for aerators. It's virtually fully funded by the state. And all sorts of towns have been doing it. I think the time has come to take advantage of that to generate some power. And solar in particular, wind power is too problematic in terms of operating costs, but solar is a pretty good deal. Especially if we're not paying for
Right, it's pretty much 100% funded or rebate, something like that, Mike.
it. Yeah, and
It
it's,
takes up a lot of ground.
it does take up a lot of ground, but in our case, we're spending just on the water and sewer plant, something like $18,000 a year.
Well, we've got the pit up there behind them that we're not using anymore. A perfect spot for solar. No,
Get sun there, though?
yeah. With all the trees that they've cut down. I don't know.
So
but-
I'd really appreciate it if you could say, okay, go explore this.
Okay, go explore this.
You know,
Okay.
you gotta-
I'm okay with it.
I'm okay with exploring it.
I'm not gonna be here, all right, but it's a reasonably sane thing to do. And if you say go explore it, then I'll let the guy know that he's gonna be willing to work on it.
Right.
Is that okay?
We're waiting.
Well, you've got 2 votes, I think.
Yeah, I go explore it. You look like me now.
Yeah.
And that was it for community power options.
All right. We have any other business?
I've been hearing on Facebook about they're having vandalism over here to Williams. That's
Yes.
something I want to, I
Yeah.
got on my note.
Yeah.
What's gonna be done about it? What
Well-
is going on?
Part of this young lady that's gonna be taking over the rec committee is, hopefully she's gonna be doing something to help keep an eye on it, figure out who's doing it. It's been reported, it's been what, 2 young ladies and a guy, young people went over there and broke in and trashed the place.
And in fairness, Steve, you know, one of the 2 people who saw this was me. Not when they were doing it. I saw the car, I saw the 3 people. I saw them using the spring toy as a trampoline, and I was on my way to a meeting and I didn't do it. In retrospect, I should have called.
Mike's fault.
Yep, Mike's fault. So, but,
Yeah,
Should have took the plate number.
yeah,
yeah, well,
yeah. At that point, they
You know,
weren't.
a quick
destroying
call to the police and say, hey, something suspicious going on in the
Yeah.
playground.
but the long and short of it is a problem. We've had it all summer. They trashed the toilets there, just like they did at the beach. I didn't print the other picture. They took all the trash barrels out and dumped them all over the fields.
stuff. Awesome.
And yet I had that green toilet sitting at the trailer all summer long and
I
nobody
don't
touched
understand.
it.
Somebody did find it.
Yeah, I took it down.
I guess, and I'll talk to Sam or some of the sergeants or whatever, because I don't think this is something that should be stated publicly, so. But I would be curious of video surveillance around, and you know,
around.
exactly, that's what I mean, so I'll talk with Sam and.
Why can't we have video cameras?
Yeah, we got them. They're sitting on top of file cabinets. We had to have a way to connect them by internet. Otherwise, you gotta send somebody up a ladder every day to pull the memory card out of it. That isn't gonna work.
Well, they just arrested a guy from New Hampshire that had a, he
Yeah.
was in the bathroom,
Florida, yeah.
Florida.
We
Yeah.
figured out how to do it. I don't know why we can't.
Maybe we can hire them.
Yeah.
I
He'll
think
be
you
looking for
consult.
work in a few years.
I think a lot of it, Ellie, honestly, adds up to money and availability of people to do it, and I agree. There are a couple things that, I know, right? I'm with you.
You don't have to put it in the bathroom.
Right.
You know, I go again back at, you know, I sent something to Mike and that's why he brought it up tonight. And, you know, 3 people saw somebody's, you know, people doing suspicious things in the field and they didn't, nobody called it in or did anything. And that's sinful. So
I worked in that field for many, many years. This is not the first year this has happened.
No, I know.
I'll tell you when it started. Is when they put the lights in. And we just feel a lot of that stuff in the playground, at least, not necessarily the bathroom, is when people bring their kids and they don't supervise it and they're too big to be playing on the playground. And we don't have, we have a dump softball, but I don't think we have anything for kids anymore. We don't have little league or any of that stuff.
I think these people were in their 20s.
Probably.
Yeah, from what I understand, they were in their early 20s.
And one of the
Why
people,
did I hear something down there, but the other thing you put a curfew on, because
Right, right.
But I don't know what else to do.
Well, you should walk down, Ellie, and see.
The other thing is, a lot of people
Put your
don't
canvas on.
and all I got is pepper spray, so, don't really worry about.
I didn't ask you to stand up to him. I just asked you to walk down.
One of the people that did see him saw him stacking the picnic tables up to get on the roof. So as far as I'm concerned, that should have been called.
All right. Any other old business?
Yeah, I got a couple of it.
Okay, go ahead.
First one is just to clarify, I need a vote. We have set a wage of 10,000 for the building inspector, which works out to $833 a month. I would ask you to set that wage for that. Because Gloria needs to have a vote in order to pay.
Okay.
We haven't paid him for the last 3 months.
Yeah,
Can you get a
yeah,
motion?
and we agreed on that.
Yeah.
I put a motion to accept it.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye, aye.
And don't forget, before you leave town, we still gotta do the $2 or not do the $2
Yeah,
later.
well, we can do that now too.
Okay, you wanna do that?
So that's for,
Yeah,
Jason.
I
So
would vote.
make a motion.
Yeah, I'll make a motion. To do,
I'll
to
second
accept
that.
it.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
This is for pay raise for Jason Hurley, who's going to be working partly with the highway department and partly with the water department.
And then the last piece is just information. The board knows it, the community doesn't know. The state gave us a one-time grant of $136,000 for DOT. And it looks like a good chunk of that, probably about half of it is gonna go for capital improvements for the trucks.
Vehicles.
And the rest would go into the roads. So that is a help.
All right, if there's no other,
You would bring up good.
if there's no other old business, I want to mention, Mike had mentioned that he's going to be getting done soon. We have hired a gentleman named Ned Connell. Ned's
He's here.
on Zoom tonight. Ned's used to live in Canaan. He's got a lot of experience. He will be effectively starting as town administrator on October 3rd. Mike will be around to help him transfer, and Mike's last day will be the 28th of October. So that's what's happening.
You will see Ned on many meetings between now and then. He's agreed to jump in as much as possible to get up. So he's hitting the ground running. So
And
I want to thank the search committee also again publicly because that worked out very well in our opinion. You know, they went through 48 applicants for that position and brought us a couple good people that we talked to. And, you know. So
Does
thank
Ned
you.
want to say hello?
Ned, do you want to come on?
I'd love to come on, Mike. Hang on. If the computer cracks out, I apologize. I'm using it like the roll-offs. I'm using some older equipment that is less than adequate.
no worries. We appreciate you coming on, Ned, and
But I am here.
there you go. So this is Ned Connell. This is our new administrator. It's tough to do over Zoom. But like I say, the applicants that were brought to us were qualified people. And we feel, the three of us felt that Ned was the best fit for our community. Yeah.
I appreciate the vote of confidence, and I hope to make Canaan proud and prosperous through my service. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ned.
Before you, I have an application to appoint Christine from Macwood to become a health officer.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Can I have you guys sign them?
Yep, yeah, you already voted on it.
Yeah, we've already voted on this
Bottom,
last meeting.
bottom left-hand corners. I don't have all the data. But-
Yes, I put that.
Oh, never mind. We have all this personal. There's two of them, just we keep one originally somewhere.
So we're gonna sign off on both of them?
I didn't fill out two because I didn't know. I will fill out.
we also, do you want to not do the truck? Right now, the only truck that's approved is a burned out one.
Correct. No, I'd rather it really have Bob come in and talk to us.
So
Because none of us have talked about it.
Yeah. All right, can I get a motion to go into non-public?
I will make a motion to go into non-public.
I'll second that.
Thank you all.